to live. I lived there for about a year and a half.
Okay. So you got your own built-in tour guide.
Absolutely.
That's amazing. We're gonna basically start off our Tuesday morning huddle. We have Doug on today, who is a residential appraiser. He's gonna walk through some changes. The one thing I'm gonna start out with is if everybody has seen that we are having an NRG meet and greet next Thursday. That's at Cowboy Jack's. Make sure that you go on and register RSVP on the Facebook page just so that way we have a good count of who's coming. And again, it's going to be a really good meet and greet. The first hour is going to be for new agents. So come on in with your questions. We're going to walk through some things. The second hour is going to be a title and lender update. And hopefully, Doug, you're there as well. So we can see you and everybody can network as well.
Sure.
But definitely go to the Facebook page and RSVP for that. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn the floor over to Doug. We're going to hold off on any questions until he gets done. And then we can go from there. And then, oh, I'm going to say too, because it looked like Amy just put a response. Hassle-free home inspections. We're doing a CE class on 11/7 from 1 to 3. So you'll see an invite go out for that as well. So, all right, Doug, the floor is yours.
All right. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Doug Peterson. I've been a residential certified appraiser for over 20 years, serving pretty much the entire metro area. I do a lot of work, specialty work in Lake Minnetonka. And so I'm doing a $2 million or $3 million property isn't something that I'm scared of doing. And so that works well. Some of the big changes that happened this year is how an appraiser measures a house. 30 years ago, I had measuring practice with as a real estate agent, but now they have us measuring that house a little bit differently than most of the agents do. And the biggest concern, the biggest focus that we have that's different now is the upstairs in a 1.5-story house. Requirements are called ANSI requirements. It's the American National Standards Institute that joined up with Fannie Mae and said, okay, we want all the appraisers to measure these houses to the same standard. So this standard says in that what I call grandma's house, the 1.5-story, has to be 50% of the ceiling has to be a minimum of 7 feet tall. So I have a laser measure, go up to the highest point of that ceiling, and then measure and see if it's 7 feet. And the other requirement to that is it has to be 50% of that ceiling at 7 feet. So we don't have too many of those. We have some, but I see a lot that's not like that. When that happens, we can't call that above grade finished square footage. But the good thing is, as we can take that information, that square footage that has been finished but doesn't meet the standard, and we'll put it down in the lower part of the grid. So if you're familiar with an appraisal at all, as you go through the appraisal, we'll start with many normal things: site size, above grade footage, bedrooms, baths, basements, that kind of stuff. But down in the bottom of that grid, look for something. I call it a bonus room. So, and I pretty much give it the same square footage value as I would before, but it's just been moved. So if you're representing a buyer and all of a sudden that appraisal comes in and the buyer says, oh my gosh, the appraiser says the house is 300 square feet smaller than what the MLS said. Take a look at the bottom of that. See if that was given credit as a bonus room. Actually, there is some challenges even to a basement where they're saying it needs to be a 7-foot ceiling height in the basement with the exception of ducting and those kind of things. I don't get too crazy about that. I try to go a little bit more to what the market does. Yeah, if it's only, I'm 6'2", and if I have to duck through doorways and duck under furnace ducts, yeah, then I might address that a little bit differently. but these are the two big ones. The one advantage that we have now as an appraiser, that maybe you don't know, is when we measure the outside of the house is how we get above grade square footage. It's always on the exterior dimension. We don't do interior dimensions, only in a condo that we do that. And now they're saying, go ahead, include that 4 inches of brick. So we might come back bigger than you, because I think most agents are measuring by foundation size. So, with the exception of an overhang. So that's something that's advantageous to you. The other thing I want to just briefly touch on FHA. Starting to see more FHA loans come through now. And I would say the biggest correction I see is probably wiring. You go down in the basement of these older homes, wiring, and somebody's done some home wiring, and there can't be any loose wires. If it's a phone wire or cable wire, we don't care about that. And hopefully your appraiser can distinguish what that is. And but any loose end wiring has to be in a junction box. It just can't have a wire nut connector on it. Every electrical outlet, plate, switch, all of those have to have covers on them. See a lot of them where somebody probably took the covers off in order to paint, and then maybe they lost one or didn't put it back on. The other things with FHA, just as a reminder to people, is any house built prior to 1978 is the lead-based paint. If we see any peeling lead-based paint, and here's what a lot of people don't understand, that peeling lead-based paint could be on the garage, and we are supposed to call it. We see a lot. I see a lot where the house has all been taken care of. Maybe the garage has been taken care of, but the windowsills and the window frames on the exterior are terrible. So those are things that need to get called. It's not so bad to do a quick little paint job in the summertime, but now as we're getting to the colder climate time of the year, that gets to be a little bit more difficult to make some of those things. So, and when we ask that it be cleaned up, just all that homeowner needs to do is scrape off that loose stuff. And even if it's just a matter of a primer to go over it, try to match the color, of course, is best. But and again, it's a safety issue. Don't see too much of having to call. We don't have to call things for, if you have a little cracked window pane, one of them is no big deal, but if you got a busted out window, it's a big deal. A lot of the old homes, sometimes people have painted they've painted the windows, the old single hung windows, and they're painted shut. So, and we can't open it. And every window has to be openable, and it has to be lockable. It has to have a working lock on it. So sometimes I've seen the settled houses where, the windows just don't line up anymore and they're an inch off. But I don't see too much of that, but those are some things that I've seen. So those are kind of the big ones. And then the other thing that I really dislike, but we have to do it for FHA, is we have to take a picture of the attic. So, in the 1970s built split entry, it's not so bad. It's in a hallway or in a big closet. But what needs to be done by the homeowner prior to the appraiser getting there for that inspection is if that scuttle's in a closet, get that closet emptied out. I'm not going to touch personal items, and get everything out of there, because a lot of times if it's blowed cellulose insulation in that attic, I pop that cover and stuff's raining down on my head, and it's going to rain down on whatever's below me too. So and I try to clean up the best I can after it. I always bring my own step ladder, so that's not an issue. Again, another thing with FHA is we're required to take pictures of any crawl space. So if an addition's been added over something, and maybe there's a window or a board that's screwed over access to that crawl space, get that opened up for us. Easier you can make it for us, the better. So some of us just, especially with the scuttles in a brand new house, I have to take a picture of the attic. And a lot of agents and builders say, well, what do you mean it's a brand new house? Well, we still have to do it. I'm going to require you to cut that scuttle open. I'm not going to be the one to cut it open and not quite get it right and tear the sheetrock paper. And then somebody's very upset about that not being completed correctly. So those are kind of the new things, and just updates for people. Starting to see, just as the market, what I'm seeing right now, starting to see a lot of reduced prices in properties. And actually, I think property values this has just been the last few weeks starting to see, I think, what looks like softening. So, I mean, I think we're still above what we were 1 year ago, but we're definitely below where we were a few months ago. And anybody that I do a refinance for, I always tell them, hey, if you want to refinance at your highest dollar, do it in August. So that's after the smart spring market. So those are kind of my things. Anybody have any questions?
Doug, can I have you go back over the 1.5 story
Yep.
again, because this is going to be, and then I want you to go back over it, and then I want to know how we as real estate agents can maybe explain this to our clients a little bit better. Because it is going to be a question that's going to come up, because
Yeah.
I think of the dormers and I think of all of the other things on that top layer. So maybe just revisit that one more time, and then let's maybe talk about it as agents here and see if we can come up with a good how we're going to explain it.
Okay. First thing you do when you go up on that 1.5 story, take a look at that ceiling. Okay. Let's go to the highest part of the ceiling and measure it. Measure floor to ceiling. Make sure it's 7 feet. If there's no part of that upper level room that's more than 7 foot ceiling height, forget it. It's not going to meet an appraiser's standards. Okay. I'm not going to tell you how to measure it, how to put it in the MLS. Okay. Because you folks, and I'm a real estate agent too for over 30 years. Um, but I guess I would do it to ANSI standards now because it's probably a little more requirement for me, and then I would have to explain it. So first thing, 77 feet. That's the biggest thing. And then 50% of that ceiling has to be 7 feet. So a lot of times you'll have that roof going up like this, but sometimes there's only 1 foot that's going to be 7 feet tall. So you need 50% of that upper level. And then as you go down the side walls, then you stop at 52 inches. And that's where you got to kind of make an imaginary wall to measure that square footage. Now, again, that's how we do it. I'm not saying that that's what is required of real estate agents, because you might be at a disadvantage if you do it to ANSI standards and there's no other agents doing that. So again, 7 foot ceiling height, minimum 50% of the ceiling at 7 feet. That answer your question, Jill?
It does. How would you explain this, not in an appraisal standpoint? Put on your realtor hat for a second. How would you explain this to somebody who says it's finished square footage? Why can't you use that?
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. In the real estate market, you have to make sure you tell if you're a listing agent, tell your sellers, do it the way you normally do it if you want to, but then explain to them, as the appraiser comes through, he may not call this finished square footage because it doesn't meet, and you can just use that four-letter term, ANSI standards, American National Standard Institute. So is what it stands for. And I don't, that's like a Z7651, or they got some crazy number that goes along with it. But you could just say that, and just say that may come up, but that appraiser should be taking credit, giving you credit in a different part of the appraisal for that. So, I mean, when this come out, and I don't have too much of it, but we do see it sometimes. And I have an underwriter come back and they'll say, well, give me a comp with that same bonus, so, and that's what gets difficult on our part. The underwriters don't understand the standards that we have to do an appraisal to many times. So, but again, we have to follow the standards. You know, if we had somebody come in and do a review appraisal and it wasn't done, well, then we're going to get our, you know, our little hand slapped. So, because we didn't follow, and then more education and fines, and knock on wood, I've been doing this for 25 years and I've never been taken to court. So, never had too much. Of course, I've had, you know, what do you mean it didn't appraise for this? So, but, and the other thing is don't be afraid to talk to the appraiser. You folks can do that. You know, don't try to influence him or her, but give them information. Information and data is the best thing that we can have. So, and you can't say, okay, I've got a 2-story and it's got a lot of square footage above grade, but that Rambler down the street, oh my God, it's got the same above grade square footage and I sold for so much more, so mine should be worth that. It's no, because it's not a comp. A Rambler and a 2-story aren't comps to each other. It's much higher cost to build that Rambler than it is to build that 2-story.
Doug, can I ask you, why did this come about, this change with the square footage? Was there a reasoning behind it that they had said?
Yeah, I mean, as much reasoning as you can give the Fannie Mae and the federal government, I guess. But they want everybody across the board, which when I mean across the board, I mean across the nation, to be measuring everything the same way, rather than everybody measuring by what their market is. So, you know, and some markets, you know, are looked at differently. So, you know, different items, you know, in an appraisal are looked at differently by what the market reaction is. But what they want to do, they're trying to standardize it. I don't think they're trying to standardize it to a way that it's, you know, gonna just put us into a big information bank and eliminate appraisals. I don't see that happening. And I've been in this business for over 20 years, you know, and since day one, oh yeah, the appraiser is going to be a dinosaur pretty soon, and we're all going to go away. It's not going to happen because the banks lending the money. They want somebody on foot with the eyes out there taking a look at it. So.
It's I guess I think it is, it's holding the lenders and everybody else accountable. And so, yeah, I don't foresee that being something that is going away, because I do need people looking at it.
Right.
My one question that I have for you today, Doug, is something, I've had quite a few listings, and it's interesting because I would say probably in the past 2 years, a lot of the appraisers have been calling me, asking me certain questions. Is that something that has, you know, changed with you guys' standards as well? And, you know, is that part of the process now where you call the listing agent and you ask them, you like, how, the one question I've been getting is like, how many offers did you have on it?
Correct.
That was in the
Yep.
multiple offer stage. And then just like, if it goes over, it's almost like they're wanting you to justify why it went over. So can you maybe touch a little bit about that?
Sure. You know, I've done that myself. Sometimes, you know, what helps us as an appraiser is if you put right in the MLS, multiple offers being reviewed, blah, 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 you know, then we know right there that it does. Or if you see that appraiser going through, just send him a quick email. I think as a listing agent, you must get some notification, especially when we set up the appraisal inspection. You know, and I'll have some of the agents, you know, send me an email or even give me a phone call to say, hey, Doug, we had, you know, in the first day we had 20 showings and 5 offers, and you know, this is why we chose this offer, and go from there. So we want to, I shouldn't speak for other appraisers, but I personally want to support you the best that I can. Just in the fact that I think it's a simple thing. A house should be worth what somebody, you know, is willing to pay for it, you know, that doesn't have their arm tied behind their back or a gun to their head. And I mean, this should be, if somebody's willing to pay for this, that's what the value should be. And if I can accommodate that, I'll try to do that. Sometimes we can't. So, as an appraiser, when I bought the house I'm living in now 2 years ago, you know, it didn't appraise for what I paid for it. And that's just part of that spring market that happens here. And as a listing agent, I would put in there, if there's multiple offers and agents are calling you, buyers agents are calling you and say, hey, well, what's the hot triggers? The hot trigger should be, an appraisal waiver. So if that buyer's strong enough, an appraisal waiver. If it's FHA, well, that doesn't work. But conventional appraisal waivers are wonderful. And sometimes we get these when I get the assignment, from the lender, from the appraisal management company, I know what you're paying. I mean, I know what the buyer is paying for because I see the full purchase agreement. So we know that. And we see, I've appraised stuff that was 80 grand over list price. Fortunately on that one, it was able to come in. I was able to find comps to support it. So, and then there's a lot of agents now that are saying, we want to list it low to create this frenzy, and so we're seeing that too. So, so to me, the listing price and the sale price really shouldn't be relevant to each other, but to some appraisers it will be, because remember, an appraisal is an opinion of value. So my opinion of value might be different than the next appraiser's opinion of value. We do not have a black and white book that says, here's what you need to make for adjustments. It's all qualitative adjustments that we make. I mean, and it's really hard to explain that to an underwriter sometimes when you have a really nice house that's really been done well versus another house that's exact same size but doesn't have the quality. So let me go back into quality adjustments. That square footage adjustment's going to have to be the same because they want you to adjust all of the comparables on the same level. But then we come back into the quality, condition, and quality, and that's where we can try to get some of that back for that property.
Doug, can you maybe go into what it takes to be an appraiser and what the length of time? I know what it is, but I would like everybody else to kind of hear that because it's not an easy process. And it's one of the things that in the industry is actually being talked about quite a bit because they're saying, when we were really busy, we didn't have enough appraisers. So can you maybe go into what it takes to be an appraiser and those qualifications?
Sure. Well, it was a lot of years ago when I went, and things have changed since then. When I went in, it was basically 90 hours of education, take a federal and a state test that you had to pass, pretty much the same as a real estate agent. And then you had to work for a minimum of 2 years with somebody that was at a licensed level. You start as a trainee, is what your license will say, a trainee, to do it. And a bank won't accept a trainee's appraisal. I mean, it's got to be signed off. You have to have a supervisor at a higher level of licensing. So there's 4 levels of licensing. You start out as a trainee. I think I don't know what it is now, but I think it's 2,500 hours of appraisal work. And then you can apply for a license level, which doesn't get you a whole lot more. Where you really need to be at a certified level, which I am at. And then you can be independent. I mean, working for somebody else and trying to split that appraisal fee, it's tougher. And what buyers need, well, they don't know it. They get that bill or on the HUD statement, they got, something says $600 for the appraisal. Well, guess what? The appraiser's not getting the $600 because there's probably an appraisal management company in between us now, and which we can thank Dodd-Frank for. That appraisal management company might be taking $200 of that. So appraisal management companies have been where the Darth with the Darth Vader to appraisers, back in 2006 when all this happened, all the business that I had built up went away overnight. and then I had to start over again and start scrambling, find appraisal management companies to sign up with and different things. And they took a big chunk of our fees. So even 1 year ago, the appraisal management companies, when it wasn't so busy anymore, they, said, the appraisers are getting desperate because they don't have as much money. So guess what? We're going to start offering lower fees. Buyers paying the same, but the appraisal management company's getting a bigger chunk. So it's just one of the things of our capital system, I guess. But yes, you have to go do your training, pass your test. But now the difference is, in order to take that test, you have to have an appraiser at a high enough level that's going to take you on, and to help train you. So that's the difference now. And that appraiser that would do that for you, he has to take special classes for that too. It's like a 6-hour class. I've taken it just for knowledge and continuing ed. I used to have people that worked with me years ago, but I don't anymore, and I probably won't because I'm getting closer to the end of my career. And now the new rule said, hey, you have to, as the experienced appraiser, as a supervisor, you need to go on every assignment with these people to measure that house, take photos, and do all those things. Back when I did it, that wasn't necessary. When the supervisor appraiser felt that you were competent to do it on your own, they let you do it. Well, I had enough of, real estate background prior to starting this that they went with me, and my supervisors that I found, they went with me on one. So, and the other thing is, now to get to that certified level where it really makes sense as an appraiser to be independent and do something on your own, you have to have a 4-year college degree. And it doesn't matter. They don't care what it's at. They just think if you've got a 4-year degree, you're a smarter person, I guess, or more reliable. Beats the heck out of me. But to me, it's one of the most ridiculous things that they put into place. This was done a few years ago. And since then, along with the supervisor having to go on every single appraiser, it's hard for somebody wanting to get into the business to find a supervisor to do that. So it just takes too much time. So I can make more money not going out and just doing it myself. So, and sometimes I go into a little rambler, that I've done probably 4,000 appraisals. And I go into a rambler. I've already looked at the comps. I already looked at the 20 photos that's on the MLS, which is absolutely fantastic. The more photos everybody can put in, the better for everybody to see things. It helps us with the comparables too. We can do a much better job of adjusting and warranting our adjustments by the pictures that we see in the MLS. So that's fantastic. But I can be in and out of a rambler in 15 minutes. You get a little 24 by 40 rambler, and there isn't much notes that you have to take. So.
No, that's very valuable information. Anything else that you would like to touch on before we kind of open the floor up? Like appraisal gaps, is there any kind of recommendation, anything you have in reference to that? Because I do think we are going to see it coming up more and more here with the adjustments that we're kind of seeing in the market. And
well, actually, Jill, right now, when the market starts declining, when the prices start going down, remember, appraisers are working with the past history. So when it's in a decline, appraisers, it's easy to do. I just did one that, I don't know why the people listed it lower, but it was on the market for 30 days. So, and it was a nice, clean townhouse in a nice area. But it sold for what I thought 20,000 less than the market. So I appraised it 20 grand higher than what they bought it for. So even though there had been price reduction, but I didn't have a lower price comparable. So, and that's the other thing that lenders want us to do is they want us to bracket every dang thing that there is. They want us to bracket the price. They want one that's a higher price is coming up, one lower price. I mean, it's lower price coming up, higher price coming down, a bigger lot, a smaller lot, bigger finished square footage, smaller square footage. You know, try to match the garages, try to match the bedrooms and bathrooms as well as you can. Because it's just all it's all a numbers game to them. So
It's a lot of investigative work.
it is, you know, and it's kind of fun though. So I've enjoyed it. You know, I started out doing just, you know, the real estate side, and I had an engineer's background and blueprints and different things and estimating, and you know, I'd always take a look at these appraisals when the buyers would show it to me, and it's like, oh, it looks kind of interesting. So I started to do it on the side, and then just kind of took over when there was one of the refi booms, and I enjoy it much more because I have to make appointments for that inspection, but other than that, my time is free. So I mean, if I can't sleep and I wake up at 5 o'clock, which is too often, I can go do some work on the computer, go get a file started, and so that's really nice. There's a lot more to me. There's a lot more independence as an appraiser than as a real estate agent. So you know, if somebody's interested and has questions about it, you know, feel free to call me. Feel free to call me on anything. I love talking with people about it and educating, because it makes my job easier if everybody knew what everybody had to go through. So most of the time we're treated pretty well when we go to a house and there's somebody there, because you know they want that appraisal to come in high enough to get the deal done, and but so that's always pretty rewarding too. You get to see a lot of different things, some good things and some not so good. But yeah, I've seen a lot of things in my years of doing this. So.
I'm sure. I'm going to open up the floor to anybody who has any questions for Doug, you know, reference to appraisals, any of the information he had today, or just a generalized question. So go ahead and unmute and ask away.
Yeah, I'm going to try to ask first because I got a association going on to Zoom meeting. It's Randy. Thanks, Doug, for representing. I got a bunch of questions all the time about, well, maybe you could just tell us what the chain of command kind of is. So you said we can talk to the agent. So a listing agent should have your information off of the showing request form. And buyer's mortgage company usually orders the appraisal. So
Correct.
when we say, hey, we can challenge the appraisal, really what that is come out and try to give you information so you can change your number. And so is there kind of a chain of command to do that?
Well, it does go through, you have to go through the lender to do that. Once you go through the lender, you can challenge it, but you're going to have comparables that they're going to challenge it. You just can't say, oh, I want to challenge this. Okay. You have to have reasoning behind it. So we try to, you know, I'll always review it. But again, you know, if I'm looking at a two-story house and you want me to use a Rambler and you say that's a comp, well, maybe that it's not. So there are some instances where we have to do that. But what are the best sales you can hand an appraiser that you don't see in an appraisal would be something that was a non-MLS sale that you have good information on. It's been recorded by the county as a sale, and you know, those are things that, you know, we don't scrounge through the county records to try to find, you know, non-MLS sales. I don't do it at all because I have no idea what the condition is in the inside of that house. So, and I won't just base my appraisal value on square footage. Hopefully that answers your question, but you go to your lender first, and go to him with the comps that you are wondering why they weren't included in the report.
Sounds good.
You know, if anybody, anybody ever has any questions about an appraisal, or would just like me to review an appraisal quickly for a buyer because maybe you felt that, hey, they missed out on something, and before you do that challenge, if you want to reach out to me and say, hey, Doug, we have a viable challenge here, I'm happy to just take a look at that for you, no cost. Or if you ever have any questions and about any of the things, give me a call or a text or an email. No cost. Happy to help anybody out.
What would be your contact information?
My telephone number is 612-723-0175. And my email, that's going to give away my age, is duck4792@aol.com. And yes, when I started in real estate,
Thank you.
They didn't have the computers. We were all totally by the book. Literal book. You had to wait 2 weeks to see a new listing come out. And you got a grainy black and white picture and a 2-inch thick phone book. Yep.
Oh, how the industry has changed, Doug.
Oh, even as the appraiser, when I started doing this, you went and took the pictures and then quick went to the 1 hour photo, and you got the 1 hour photo pictures. You had to run back to the drugstore to get your photos, and then you had to paste them onto paste them into the report, and then go take color copies, and then go hand deliver these things. Oh my God. Yep. So that's helped them.
Kodak and Xerox were making some money back then.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Too funny. Does anybody else have any other questions for Doug? All right.
And if anybody ever has anything, what I really enjoy doing is the estate appraisals. Somebody passes away and they need an appraisal done for tax purposes. I love doing those. I might give a little break on the cost of it because it's just a little something simpler. I don't have an underwriter that I got to battle with. Go through and get it done. Divorces, I will work with a couple that's amicable. But if I don't want to be part of this big dispute thing. So I have had to go to court one time to explain an appraisal in a divorce situation, and that was not any fun. So, and it was a great story, but we won't go into that.
Yeah, that sounds like a not so fun process. Absolutely. Okay, Doug, well, we appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody being on the call today. Again, I just want to emphasize we have our meet and greet next Thursday at Cowboy Jack's. Please go on to the NRG Facebook Connect and RSVP to that. And then we also have that CE class set up on November 7th, which you'll be seeing more information about that in the next couple of weeks. But again, we're doing this meet and greet next week so we can network. If we all talk together, we're going to all work together, just like Doug coming in today, giving us a little bit more information and also giving us that tool to say, hey, call me if you have a question. So it's again another tool for the toolbox that we need in this market that we're walking into. So Doug, I appreciate your time. I appreciate everybody being on here. Watch that NRG Facebook Connect for next week's Sweet Assist. Check the calendar out on that, and then we will go from there. But otherwise, have an amazing week and go do something great.
Thank you.
Thank you.